Indian subcontinent. History of India. Part 4. The Chalukya Empire ruled large parts of southern and central India between the 6th and the 12th centuries, as three related yet individual dynasties. The earliest dynasty, known as the Badami Chalukyas, ruled from Vadapi from the middle of the 6th century. The Badami Chalukyas began to assert their independence at the decline of the Kadamba kingdom of Banavasi, and rapidly rose to prominence during the reign of Pulakshin II. The rule of the Chalukyas marks an important milestone in the history of South India, and a golden age in the history of Karnataka. The political atmosphere in South India shifted from smaller kingdoms to large empires with the ascendancy of Badami Chalukyas. A southern India-based kingdom took control and consolidated the entire region between the Kaveri and the Narmada rivers. The rise of this empire saw the birth of efficient administration, overseas trade and commerce, and the development of new style of architecture called Chalukyan architecture. The Chalukya dynasty ruled parts of southern and central India from Badami and Karnataka between 550 and 750, and then again from Kalyani between 970 and 1190. Founded by Dantaturga around 753, the Rashtrakuta Empire ruled from its capital at Maniakheta for almost 2 centuries. At its peak, the Rashtrakutas ruled from the Ganges Yamuna Doab in the north to Cape Comorin in the south, a fruitful time of architectural and literary achievements. The early rulers of this dynasty were Hindu, but the later rulers were strongly influenced by Jainism. Govinda III and Amaghavarsa were the most famous of the long line of able administrators produced by the dynasty. Amaghavarsa was also an author and wrote Kavarajamarga, the earliest known Kannada work on poetics. Architecture reached a milestone in the Dravidian style, the finest example of which is seen in the Kailasanath temple at Ellora. Other important contributions are the Kashivishvanatha temple and the Jain Narayana temple at Padadakal in Karnataka. The Arab traveler Sulayman described the Rashtrakuta Empire as one of the 4 great empires of the world. The Rashtrakuta period marked the beginning of the golden age of southern Indian mathematics. The great South Indian mathematician Mahavira had a huge impact on medieval South Indian mathematicians. The Rashtrakuta rulers also patronized men of letters in a variety of languages. The Gurjara Pratiharas were instrumental in containing Arab armies moving east of the Indus River. Nagabata I defeated the Arab army under Junaid and Taman during the Umayyad campaigns in India. Under Nagabata II, the Gurjara Pratiharas became the most powerful dynasty in northern India. He was succeeded by his son Ramabhadra, who ruled briefly before being succeeded by his son Mihira Bhoja. Under Bhoja and his successor Mahendrapala I, the Pratihara Empire reached its peak of prosperity and power. By the time of Mahendrapala, its territory stretched from the border of Sindh in the west to Bihar in the east and from the Himalayas in the north to around the Narmada River in the south. The expansion triggered a tripartite power struggle with the Rashtrakuta and Pala empires for control of the Indian subcontinent. By the end of the 10th century, several feudatories of the empire took advantage of the temporary weakness of the Gurjara Pratiharas to declare their independence. Notably the Paramaras of Malwa, the Chandelas of Bundelkhand, the Tamaras of Haryana, the Chauhans of Rajputana, and the Kalachuris of Mahakashal. Kahatavala dynasty ruled parts of the present-day Indian states of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar during 11th and 12th centuries. Their capital was located at Varanasi. The Kairavala dynasty ruled parts of the present-day Indian states of Bihar and Jharkhand during 11th and 12th centuries. Their capital was located at Kairagar in Shahabad district. Prataptavala and Shri Pratapa were king of the dynasty. The Pala Empire was founded by Gopala I. It was ruled by a Buddhist dynasty from Bengal. The Palas reunified Bengal after the fall of Shashanka's Gauda kingdom. The Palas were followers of the Mahayana and Tantric schools of Buddhism. They also patronized Shaivism and Vaishnavism. The empire reached its peak under Dharmapala and Divapala. Dharmapala is believed to have conquered Kannauj and extended his sway up to the farthest limits of India in the northwest. The Pala Empire can be considered as the golden era of Bengal. Dharmapala founded the Vikramashila and revived Nalanda, considered one of the first great universities in recorded history. Nalanda reached its height under the patronage of the Pala Empire. The Palas also built many viharas. They maintained close cultural and commercial ties with countries of Southeast Asia and Tibet. Sea trade added greatly to the prosperity of the Pala Empire. Medieval Cholas rose to prominence during the middle of the 9th century CE and established the greatest empire South India had seen. They successfully united the South India under their rule, and through their naval strength extended their influence in the Southeast Asian countries such as Srivijaya. Under Rajaraja Chola and his successors Rajendra Chola, Rajadharaja Chola, Virajendra Chola and Kulothunga Chola, the dynasty became a military economic and cultural power in South Asia and Southeast Asia. Rajendra Chola I's navies occupied the seacoasts from Burma to Vietnam, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, the Lakshadweep Islands, Sumatra, and the Malay Peninsula. The power of the new empire was proclaimed to the Eastern world by the expedition to the Ganges, which Rajendra Chola I undertook, and by the occupation of cities of the maritime empire of Srivijaya in Southeast Asia, as well as by the repeated embassies to China. They dominated the political affairs of Sri Lanka for over 2 centuries through repeated invasions and occupation. They also had continuing trade contacts with the Arabs and the Chinese Empire. Rajaraja Chola and his son Rajendra Chola I gave political unity to the whole of southern India and established the Chola Empire as a respected sea power. Under the Cholas, the South India reached new heights of excellence in art, religion, and literature. In all of these spheres, the Chola period marked the culmination of movements that had begun in an earlier age under the Pallavas. Monumental architecture in the form of majestic temples and sculpture in stone and bronze reached a finesse never before achieved in India. The Western Chalukya Empire ruled most of the western Deccan, South India, between the 10th and 12th centuries. Vast areas between the Narmada River in the north and Kaveri River in the south came under Chalukya control. During this period, the other major ruling families of the Deccan, the Hoysalas, the Suna Yadavas of Devagiri, the Kakatiya dynasty, and the southern Kalachuras, were subordinates of the western Chalukya and gained their independence only when the power of the Chalukya waned during the latter half of the 12th century. The western Chalukyas developed an architectural style known today as a transitional style, an architectural link between the style of the early Chalukya dynasty and that of the later Hoysala Empire. Most of its monuments are in the districts bordering the Tungabhadra River in central Karnataka. Well-known examples are the Kasivisvara Temple at Lakundi, the Mallikarjuna Temple at Kuruvatti, the Kalasvara Temple at Pagali, Siddhesvara Temple at Haveri, and the Mahadeva Temple at Itagi. This was an important period in the development of fine arts in southern India, especially in literature, as the Western Chalukya kings encouraged writers in the native language of Kannada and Sanskrit like the philosopher and statesman Basava and the great mathematician Bhaskara too. The late medieval period is marked by repeated invasions of the Muslim Central Asian nomadic clans, the rule of the Delhi Sultanate, and by the growth of other dynasties and empires, built upon military technology of the Sultanate. The Delhi Sultanate was a series of successive Islamic states based in Delhi, ruled by several dynasties of Turkic, Turco-Indian, and Pashtun origins. It ruled large parts of the Indian subcontinent from the 13th to the early 16th century. In the 12th and 13th centuries, Central Asian Turks invaded parts of northern India and established the Delhi Sultanate in the former Hindu holdings. The subsequent Mamluk dynasty of Delhi managed to conquer large areas of northern India, while the Khalji dynasty conquered most of central India while forcing the principal Hindu kingdoms of South India to become vassal states. The Sultanate ushered in a period of Indian cultural renaissance. The resulting Indo-Muslim fusion of cultures left lasting syncretic monuments in architecture, music, literature, religion, and clothing. It is surmised that the language of Urdu was born during the Delhi Sultanate period. The Delhi Sultanate is the only Indo-Islamic empire to enthrone one of the few female rulers in India, Razia Sultana. While initially disruptive due to the passing of power from native Indian elites to Turkic Muslim elites, the Delhi Sultanate was responsible for integrating the Indian subcontinent into a growing world system, drawing India into a wider international network, which had a significant impact on Indian culture and society. However, the Delhi Sultanate also caused large-scale destruction and desecration of temples in the Indian subcontinent. The Mongol invasions of India were successfully repelled by the Delhi Sultanate during the rule of Alauddin Khalji. A major factor in their success was their Turkic Mamluk slave army, who were highly skilled in the same style of nomadic cavalry warfare as the Mongols. It is possible that the Mongol Empire may have expanded into India were it not for the Delhi Sultanate's role in repelling them. By repeatedly repulsing the Mongol raiders, the Sultanate saved India from the devastation visited on West and Central Asia, setting the scene for centuries of migration of fleeing soldiers, learned men, mystics, traders, artists, and artisans from that region into the subcontinent, thereby creating a syncretic Indo-Islamic culture in the north. A Turco-Mongol conqueror in Central Asia, Timur, attacked the reigning Sultan Nasir-ud-din Mahmud of the Tughlaq dynasty in the North Indian city of Delhi. The Sultan's army was defeated on the 17th of December 1398. Timur entered Delhi, and the city was sacked, destroyed, and left in ruins after Timur's army had killed and plundered for 3 days and nights. He ordered the whole city to be sacked except for the Sayyids, scholars, and the other Muslims. 100,000 war prisoners were put to death in one day. The Sultanate suffered significantly from the sacking of Delhi. Though revived briefly under the Lodi dynasty, it was but a shadow of the former. The Vijayanagara Empire was established in 1336 by Harihara and his brother Bukka Raya I of Sangama dynasty, which originated as a political heir of the Hoysala Empire, Kakatiya Empire, and the Pandyan Empire. The empire rose to prominence as a culmination of attempts by the South Indian powers to ward off Islamic invasions by the end of the 13th century. It lasted until 1646, although its power declined after a major military defeat in 1565 by the combined armies of the Deccan Sultanates. The empire is named after its capital city of Vijayanagara, whose ruins surround present-day Hampi, now a World Heritage Site in Karnataka, India. In the first 2 decades after the founding of the empire, Harihara I gained control over most of the area south of the Tungabhadra River and earned the title of Purvapaskima Samudradishvara. By 1374, Bukka Raya I, successor to Harihara I, had defeated the chiefdom of Arcot, the Reddas of Kondavid, and the Sultan of Madurai, and had gained control over Goa in the west and the Tungabhadra Krishna Doab in the north. Harihara II, the second son of Bukka Raya I, further consolidated the kingdom beyond the Krishna River and brought the whole of South India under the Vijayanagara umbrella. The next ruler, Deva Raya I, emerged successful against the Gajapatis of Odisha and undertook important works of fortification and irrigation. Italian traveler Niccolò da Conti wrote of him as the most powerful ruler of India. Deva Raya II succeeded to the throne in 1424 and was possibly the most capable of the Sangama dynasty rulers. He quelled rebelling feudal lords as well as the Zamarin of Calicut and Quilon in the south. He invaded the island of Sri Lanka and became overlord of the kings of Burma at Pegu and Tanasaram. The Vijayanagara emperors were tolerant of all religions and sects, as writings by foreign visitors show. The kings used titles such as Gabrahamana Pratapalanacharya and Hinjaraya Suratrana that testified to their intention of protecting Hinduism and yet were at the same time staunchly Islamicate in their court ceremonials and dress. The empire's founders, Harihara I and Bukka Raya I, were devout Shaivas, but made grants to the Vaishnava order of Sringeri with Viduranya as their patron saint and designated Varaha as their emblem. Nobles from Central Asia's Timurid kingdoms also came to Vijayanagara. The later Saluva and Chaluva kings were Vaishnava by faith, but worshipped at the feet of Lord Virupaksha at Hampi as well as Lord Venkateshwara at Tirupati. A Sanskrit work, Jambavati Kalyanam by King Krishnadvaraya, called Lord Virupaksha Karnata Raja Rakshamani. The kings patronized the saints of the Dvaita order of Madhvacharya at Udupi. The empire's legacy includes many monuments spread over South India, the best known of which is the group at Hampi. The previous temple-building traditions in South India came together in the Vijayanagara architecture style. The mingling of all faiths and vernaculars inspired architectural innovation of Hindu temple construction. South Indian mathematics flourished under the protection of the Vijayanagara Empire in Kerala. The South Indian mathematician Madhava of Sangamagrama founded the famous Kerala School of Astronomy and Mathematics in the 14th century, which produced a lot of great South Indian mathematicians like Parameshvara, Nilakantha Samayaji, and Jayastadeva. Efficient administration and vigorous overseas trade brought new technologies such as water management systems for irrigation. The empire's patronage enabled fine arts and literature to reach new heights in Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, and Sanskrit, while Carnatic music evolved into its current form. Vijayanagara went into decline after the death of Aliyur Rama Raya in the Battle of Talakota. Tirumala Deva Raya started the Aravidu dynasty, moved and founded a new capital of Penukonda to replace the destroyed Hampi, and attempted to reconstitute the remains of Vijayanagara Empire. Tirumala abdicated in 1572, dividing the remains of his kingdom to his 3 sons, and pursued a religious life until his death in 1578. The Aravidu dynasty successors ruled the region, but the empire collapsed in 1614, and the final remains ended in 1646 from continued wars with the Bijapur Sultanate and others. During this period, more kingdoms in South India became independent and separate from Vijayanagara. These include the Mysore Kingdom, Kaladi Nayaka, Nayaks of Madurai, Nayaks of Tanjore, Nayakas of Chitradurga, and Nayak Kingdom of Jinji, all of which declared independence and went on to have a significant impact on the history of South India in the coming centuries. After the defeat in the Battle of Talakota, for 2.5 centuries from the mid-13th century, politics in northern India was dominated by the Delhi Sultanate, and in southern India by the Vijayanagara Empire. However, there were other regional powers present as well. After fall of Pala Empire, the Chero dynasty ruled much of eastern Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and Jharkhand from 12th C to 18th C. The Reddy dynasty successfully defeated the Delhi Sultanate and extended their rule from Cuttack in the north to Kanchai in the south, eventually being absorbed into the expanding Vijayanagara Empire. In the north, the Rajput kingdoms remained the dominant force in western and central India. The Muir dynasty under Maharana Hamir defeated and captured Muhammad Tughlaq with the Bargujars as his main allies. Tughlaq had to pay a huge ransom and relinquish all of Muir's lands. After this event, the Delhi Sultanate did not attack Chittor for a few hundred years. The Rajputs re-established their independence, and Rajput states were established as far east as Bengal and north into the Punjab. The Tamaras established themselves at Gwalior, and Man Singh Tamar reconstructed the Gwalior fort. During this period, Muir emerged as the leading Rajput state, and Rana Kumbha expanded his kingdom at the expense of the sultanates of Malwa and Gujarat. The next great Rajput ruler, Rana Sanga of Muir, became the principal player in northern India. His objectives grew in scope. He planned to conquer Delhi, but his defeat in the Battle of Kanwa consolidated the new Mughal dynasty in India. The Muir dynasty under Maharana Uday Singh II faced further defeat by Mughal Emperor Akbar, with their capital Chittor being captured. Due to this event, Uday Singh II founded Udaipur, which became the new capital of the Muir kingdom. His son, Maharana Pratap of Muir, firmly resisted the Mughals. Akbar sent many missions against him. He survived to ultimately gain control of all of Muir, excluding the Chittor fort. In the south, the Bahmani Sultanate was the chief rival of the Vijayanagara and frequently created difficulties for the Vijayanagara. In the early 16th century, Krishnadevara of the Vijayanagar Empire defeated the last remnant of Bahmani Sultanate power, resulting it being split into 5 small Deccan sultanates. In 1490, Ahmednagar declared independence, followed by Bijapur and Berar in the same year. Golconda became independent in 1518 and Bidar in 1528. Although generally rivals, they did ally against the Vijayanagara Empire in 1565, permanently weakening Vijayanagar in the Battle of Talikota. In the east, the Gajapati kingdom remained a strong regional power to reckon with, associated with a high point in the growth of regional culture and architecture. Under Kapailandradva, Gajapatis became an empire stretching from the lower Ganga in the north to the Kaveri in the south. In northeast India, the Ahom kingdom was a major power for 6 centuries. Led by Lachit Borphukan, the Ahoms decisively defeated the Mughal army at the Battle of Saraighat during the Ahom-Mughal conflicts. Further east in northeastern India was the Kingdom of Manipur, which ruled from their seat of power at Kangla Fort and developed a sophisticated Hindu Gaudiya Vaishnavite culture. The Sultanate of Bengal was the dominant power of the Ganges, Brahmaputra Delta, with a network of mint towns spread across the region. It was a Sunni Muslim monarchy with Indo-Turkic, Arab, Abyssinian and Bengali Muslim elites. The Sultanate was known for its religious pluralism where non-Muslim communities coexisted peacefully. The Bengal Sultanate had a circle of vassal states, including Odisha in the southwest, Arakan in the southeast, and Tripura in the east. In the early 16th century, the Bengal Sultanate reached the peak of its territorial growth with control over Kamrup and Kamata in the northeast and Jaunpur and Bihar in the west. It was reputed as a thriving trading nation and one of Asia's strongest states. The Bengal Sultanate was described by contemporary European and Chinese visitors as a relatively prosperous kingdom and the richest country to trade with. The Bengal Sultanate left a strong architectural legacy. Buildings from the period show foreign influences merged into a distinct Bengali style. The Bengal Sultanate was also the largest and most prestigious authority among the independent medieval Muslim-ruled states in the history of Bengal. Its decline began with an interregnum by the Suri Empire, followed by Mughal conquest and disintegration into petty kingdoms. Soon we will publish Part 5. Thank you for watching.